Otherwise, we are good to go. Uh,
Okay. And
so,
we have 8 members present.
yes,
Ted Dockery, Lisa Hanairo, Kirsten Kleckner. I think I saw Ken Markert.
I'm here.
he is here. Yes.
Dale Rhodes, Todd Kalish, Jim Schutz, and Tom Yost are all present. Carrie Schiffner and Zoe Van Nest are not present this evening.
All right, let's start with the minutes. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? Hearing no corrections to the minutes, they stand as read. So we'll move on to item number 1. Development of guidelines for implementing complete streets policy. So I'll give a brief overview for this. I would like to start the process of having actual guidelines for the complete streets policy. We are the committee charged with monitoring and assessing basically the effectiveness of the policy. And it seems like if we have general guidelines for what people should actually do, it will be much easier for them to be effective. So on that note, Kirsten, could you talk about your recent experience with the Costco entrance?
Yeah, actually the Costco entrance and then the one intersection, I guess would be towards University. I can't remember. That's where the UPS comes in and out. Almost every time I bike on the path going by there, I have a close call. The Costco entrance is by far the worst. People will blow through and go right through the stop sign to take a left or a right onto Deming without looking, without slowing down right out of the lot. I have actually been I use the word hit twice loosely because I didn't get hurt, but the car has come in contact with me twice. And then, like I said, almost every time I'm having to slam on the brakes. And I volunteer over at the mountain bike trails at Middleton Bike Park in Blackhawk. So I'm taking that several times a week. And I see pedestrians get close calls almost every time I'm there as well. Tad, you and I biked by there and I kind of showed you what was going on. And then the intersection, like I said, one closer to University. The same thing is happening. So many people are taking left and right turns that they're only watching for auto traffic and not pedestrians or cyclists whatsoever. And so what I had suggested with Tad is that we have, and Mark, that we have a speed hump in the parking lot at the stop sign for a Costco.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I would caution, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable talking specifically about certain locations.
Okay.
I thought this was going to be more conversation about the general
Yeah.
policy. And
So
if you
Sorry.
start talking about locations, then they're not properly, they're not, then
Yep.
people weren't given notice that we're talking about certain locations. So that's,
right.
I
So
would caution you about that.
sorry about that, Mark.
That's all right.
I didn't make it clear to Kirsten. Rather than talk about solutions right now, I wanted for both of us to mention specific issues at specific locations to demonstrate that this is a widespread problem.
No, I understand that. I just didn't want to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So to follow up, just this past Monday, I walked down to Gino's to buy a sandwich, and on the way there, I was nearly struck, and on the way back, I was nearly struck. The guy on the way back waved at me as he clearly broke the law, but the woman who nearly struck me on the way down was so focused on making the turn with traffic that she failed to notice that there was a pedestrian there. So, and our current plan is to basically make the intersection worse when we do the redesign. Larger turn radiuses, more lanes, etc. So I was hoping, so I'm bringing that up to show that this is a widespread issue, which is why we have our policy, and it's good to have the policy, but we need to make it actually easy for retrofits, for new designs to do the right thing.
Ted, are you hoping for comments like having traffic slowing things coming out of parking lots that cross bike paths and sidewalks, or what are you proposing that we discuss specifically with this?
So, so tonight, to be honest, it's less about making a specific action, and it's more about being aware of the direction we need to go.
Okay.
This is not something we can solve tonight.
Mhm.
But we can definitely have some discussion about the kinds of things we'd like to see in the guidelines.
For that, I would say one of the biggest things when it comes to complete streets is when there's construction, that there is always a pedestrian way or way for cyclists to maneuver through a street so that a sidewalk is not completely blocked. A sidewalk and a bike lane are not completely blocked when there is construction. I think that's one of the biggest things for complete streets.
Okay, I documented that one. That's a good insight.
And Madison does it routinely. They use barriers like cement barriers to form a sidewalk or form a safe passage for pedestrians and cyclists to maneuver a street.
Lisa?
Thank you. I agree that we need some sort of guidelines or goals for implementing this policy. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, in District 6, a student, a couple months ago, a student on his way to middle school was hit by struck. He was okay, but a car turning right off of High Road onto Century clipped his backpack as he was crossing Century. And his mother brought it to my attention, brought it to the attention of the school district and the police, and they followed up the police appropriately. But to get a change at that intersection, which was talked about at the Public Works level, which I formerly was on at the time, but the accident data don't, right now under Middleton's policies, the number of accidents at that intersection means it isn't warranted to take action at that particular intersection, to do something like, I did suggest the lead pedestrian, but what's the LPI again? The pedestrian interval, maybe that needs to be implemented there. So I think it's still on the list for consideration, but our traditional public works approach would say not enough people have been hit at that intersection to warrant doing anything at this time. And as an alderperson, that is, to me, not acceptable. The whole idea should be to prevent. We've had something happen recently. We're having development north of this area, and more students presumably will be walking along this this roadway. Why wouldn't we want to do something proactively since we have our complete streets policy? And I'd be curious to hear from Mark eventually about, when this policy was developed, what was envisioned for implementation, and what are other cities doing in terms of guidance for their policies? Thanks.
Todd.
Yeah, just to follow up on Lisa's comments there. When I was reading through, and I'm new to this, so if I mischaracterize any of this, let me know. But when I'm reading through the complete streets policy, it to me it really seems to focus on new projects. So the design of streets, the redesign of streets. And I mean, yeah, if you go to number 3, we'll incorporate this policy into all public project phases: planning, programming, design, right-of-way acquisition. But it doesn't get to what Alder Haniro was saying about after what if we have issues? What if we're not in the process of designing or redesigning a street, but there are significant issues identified? Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I just wanted to bring it up that this is another thing that maybe we want to integrate into this is make it clear that we would like this policy to be adhered to or acknowledged, not just in the design of projects or redesign of street projects, but all the time. If there's an issue, if there's accidents, that's just one of the things that I noticed. Thank you.
I'll fill the silence by noting that I
Yeah.
think that's a valid comment about the focus being newly designed streets, but there was at least an attempt to discuss in the policy routine maintenance and rehabilitation as well. Whether that's properly emphasized, I can see that that's a concern. But I think it wasn't meant to be just for new streets. It was meant to be all streets. But if there's ways to improve the policy, especially in the implementation of the guidelines, and make it clear that it affects existing streets, obviously we can discuss that and follow up with that.
Wasn't that, Mark, wasn't that discussed when they were looking at the redo of Mayflower north of Maywood, about putting in the sidewalks there?
Mayflower north of Maywood. Yeah, and then of course Brookdale, we had that discussion too about retrofits with sidewalks there.
I mean, I thought that was part of the original complete streets. Because we made that list of places without sidewalks and.
Right. I guess I'm just gonna say I agree.
Okay.
It was. That's correct. It was.
Lisa?
I wanted to bring up another example of, well, actually, this is a new, I guess it's a reconstruction project, but the Public Works Committee, after I left it, at their most recent meeting, they voted to remove a raised crosswalk from the plans for the reconstruction of Lake Street, leading up to the new park that's going to be built, where the boat launch is right now. And I know the neighbors had on that street had indicated they didn't want the raised crosswalk for a variety of reasons, noise mostly, even though they'll be benefiting from the reduction in noise from boat trailers, which was a concern that they had raised early on in the design process. And I found it a little bit frustrating that change came about, because this was going to be one of the first examples of Middleton, implementing raised crosswalks as part of the complete streets policy. And I don't know if there's anything that this committee can do to encourage them to rethink that. I wasn't at the meeting and haven't seen the video, so I don't know what the rationale was now, but it seems like a missed opportunity. And inconsistent with our policy.
So that was actually one of the things that spurred me to kind of really pull this guidelines thing together, because it seemed to me that they all assumed essentially that a raised crosswalk was a speed bump with a crosswalk on top, which of course is not the case. So we need to make it clear what these kinds of treatments are, to everybody, essentially, so that we're all talking about the actually same thing.
Can I comment?
Yes, Tom.
So I was at the public works committee on this, and it's my recollection that because it's a dead end street and people are slowing down anyway, that that because of that, this was a different situation. I don't know if that's a valid reason or not, but it made sense to me that might be possibly a reason why a raised crosswalk wouldn't be productive in that. I'm not sure. I'm not judging one way or the other, but it sounded like they had
Yeah,
a argument on that. So,
Tom, I think. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think you're right. That was a lot of the reasoning, that it was a dead end street. But again, they made the misconception that it's a speed bump and that its primary purpose is to slow cars. Its two primary purposes are to make pedestrians more visible by elevating them off the sidewalk, and to improve the pedestrian crossing experience by not forcing them to dip to road level. So even on that dead end street, it would have still been a very good thing to have. Sorry, Kirsten.
Yes, and as somebody who worked at Harbor Athletic Club for 17 years and walked and biked daily there, I crossed that section numerous times every day, and it's extremely dangerous, that whole intersection for pedestrians. People turning in and out of Harbor at high speeds, and not looking for pedestrians make it very, very unsafe, even though it is a dead end.
Can I talk again?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm not sure I understand this, but is the crosswalk, it's the harbor traffic is between Allen and the driveway to into harbor both ways, the driveway on the north side and the south side. But the crosswalk is further down the street from that, isn't it? So that end of the street isn't being affected. I mean, I know that Harbor's had a lot of problems with people doing left turns continuously, making it hard to get out. I think it would, lights, people have been begging for lights at that intersection. Because you got people coming in there at rush hour, and it's hard for the person doing the left turn, and it's hard for the other person doing the left turn wanting to get out onto Allen. But this crosswalk that we're talking, so we got a problem there, and I think Harbor has actually hired traffic people during the rush, during their busy time, to assist in guiding traffic into their parking lot, which is which was a good thing. But I don't know. I lived on the for over 30 years, 31 years. I lived on Century Harbor Road, and it used to be the Harbor people would use that private road that they didn't own at that time to get out on Century Avenue going eastbound. Of course, now they own half the road, so we can't, tell them they can't be using that. I shouldn't maybe be getting into that, since I'm not currently, representing the condo board. I'm just kind of relaying what I've observed and noticed. But so taking it back to the
Tom,
yeah.
I think Mark might be
Yeah, just
about.
a couple reminders. First of all, Tom, we need to participate in the meeting as a member. We need the video camera on.
Okay.
It's off
Just a
again, and
minute.
that's our policy to be counted for quorum and for
Yeah,
participating.
okay.
And then secondly, I again am uncomfortable with focusing so much on specific
just a
problem
minute.
areas in the city. I think having them as examples is fine, but if we're going to really
Right.
start dissecting specific problems, then I think it should probably be noticed on the agenda.
Yeah, and I'm
Sorry to be
thank
a
thank
hard
no
line about that, but
thank you Mark. Yeah, I do. Sorry, I would like to kind of keep it the conversation from going down too many site specific rabbit holes.
I think the comment that Kirsten offered, the general comment about construction zones and making sure that one way to implement our policy guidelines is that when we consider reconstruction projects that we make sure that we provide accommodations. I think that's an excellent guideline. So I think that's the sort of comment. And if it's rooted in some experience somewhere, that's fine. But I just don't want to get into, problem solving specific areas and, without it being more general discussion.
Yeah.
I'll shut up now.
Question is, what is talking about guidelines? And if we're talking about it in general terms, which I agree with, what is the problem? Is there an overall problem?
So, okay, so I'm gonna backtrack to Red Tail Ridge, which I believe we addressed last summer. And we basically, they came to us and asked for specific implementation details, and we gave them very specific implementation details. I kind of would like to avoid having to do that for every single development. There are known ways to do this stuff, and so by presenting a very clear set of guidelines about how they can meet our expectations, we won't have to go through and play site-specific whack-a-mole every time. Hang on, Tom. Lisa.
I appreciate your assessment, Tad, of the situation. And I would say, again, trying to think of a more general approach to making sure this policy gets implemented without a nudge from this committee. I'll again recommend that the committee can, if we haven't already submitted this feedback to council, that the committee really consider asking that instead of having a public works designee on this committee, that this committee appoint a designee on public works, because I think we'd be much more likely to have somebody bring up the points you were making about what's the purpose of a raised crosswalk, and let's use, the terms consistently and understand what they are. I think that would happen much more readily if we had a representative of this committee serving on public works.
Lisa, thanks for the reminder. When I wrote the minutes, I did not think to send that directly to, I wasn't sure who to send that to at the time, but I guess I'll send it to Abby, the feedback on committees. I don't know who in the council is spearheading that. I'll send it to Abby and Brian.
And Brian, I think Brian was gathering it all.
Yep. Sorry, I forgot to do that. I'll take care of it now.
Tom?
Can I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so on the broader scope, if we're going to be involving public works, which I think is a great idea, what about involving public safety, the public safety committee? actually, I understand that. Well, I was on the public safety committee, and we had deferred the licensing of, Middleton as a fine for not having a bike registered, and whether or not we should be doing that was deferred to this committee. I don't know what the outcome to that was, but so there's already been an attempt at interaction between public safety and this committee. That's all.
Jim.
Question that I had, when a project is going to be, this is probably more for Mark, when a project is under consideration and they're looking at all the phases of the development, does the concept of complete streets specifically come up? Such, well, okay, this is what we've come up with our design. Does it meet our complete street guidelines?
I think we can do better. I do think the exercise we went through to develop the complete streets policy increased awareness among all my colleagues about the importance of complete streets. I think our one guideline or one step we could do is to make sure that when a developer, for example, with the not to get too much into examples, but once using Red Tail Ridge as an example, and when we have a plat for new streets, making sure that that design adheres to, that we check a box saying, does it comply with complete streets? I don't know if there's a specific checklist for that downstairs, but I know that there's awareness to evaluate streets that are proposed to make sure they comply with city ordinances and policies. Sorry, I didn't give a very clear answer, but I think we can do better is what I was trying to say. But I think we are doing better already. So maybe that's a criteria to add to the list, that there's a box to check, if you will, to assess, making sure that the complete streets policy is adhered to, obviously provisions in the zoning ordinance. We are in the process of revising our subdivision ordinance. We've kicked off that project, and that's a very important way to implement complete streets, because our subdivision ordinance provides standards for how plats are and certified survey maps are, what lands they dedicate for transportation purposes. So all of this is working together under the auspices of the complete streets policy and our comprehensive plan. We can update our ordinances and need to update them accordingly, which then leads to improved procedures.
Lisa, could you really quick restate what you wanted Mark to cover eventually?
Did I miss something? Sorry.
No, I'm just
About the
just forgetting.
committee, about the committee liaisons?
No, the thing before that.
The thing before that. Oh, I asked if Mark had any insight into how other municipalities operationalize their policy, their complete streets policy. And, I'm thinking of, for example, the sustainable purchasing policy that the council enacted a second time. We're still waiting for the implementation plan to come out for that, because we've got the policy, but helping the staff follow through on it is another matter. And so I'm wondering, what do other municipalities do? Do they do an implementation plan or what?
Well, I can't speak to what other municipalities do, but I can speak to number 8 in our policy, which talks about performance measures, and also the need for this committee or for the city to do an annual review of the efficacy of our complete streets policy. So this is not something, the policy now is going on its second full year. Actually, I think it's well into its second full year. We have not gone back and looked at providing a report, a measurement, annually measuring and reporting to the council the following performance measures. And that's something I need to work on this summer. We are hiring an intern who's going to have a focus on transportation issues. And this is one of those areas that we want to work with him on. We have several of those types of things that we want to do. So I would say in terms of guidelines and accountability, the performance measures section and the annual reporting is a good way to do that. I have not, like I said, discussed with peers and other communities how they implement their policies, but I'd be happy to look into that.
At least one possible answer for some of the larger cities is that they probably rely on NACTO guidance, the National Association of City Transportation Officials. So they have a number of guides together, and I think we should at least make reference to them, because again, not just important to make things easy for new design and retrofits, but also for ourselves. Todd.
Yeah, and Mark, you answered my main question. I wondered if we had done the annual review yet, but I'm just thinking about the process for potentially engaging, different committees and potentially the Common Council on making changes to this. And one of the things that the Common Council will likely ask is, what's the rationale? What's the need here? So adding more specificity to this policy, if that's going to be our goal, we might want to do that during the performance measure review. Combine the two. Say we haven't done a performance measures assessment, and this is our assessment. These are some areas where we think that we can improve this policy since it has been implemented. Because that question will get asked. What is the emergency? How is this built into implementing and continually reviewing this policy? And it looks like we already have an annual review policy built into it. So, if we want to include more specificity in that, an option might be to couple that with the annual review of the performance metrics.
Kirsten.
Instead of reinventing the wheel, since although Madison's a much larger municipality, they've been working on their complete streets policy heavily for years. And I'm wondering if we could just tap into more of their knowledge from Robbie Weber or Grant Foster, who is older in Madison, and also one of the board presidents of Madison Bikes, just to see how they have, I guess, implemented it and how they've held accountability to anybody involved in projects or new building. It might be just easier to ask them versus us going through everything and looking at it.
Conveniently, Madison is also a member of NACTO, so.
Yep.
All right, so question, this is going to be a more than one meeting process. Does anybody else have anything they want to make clear tonight? Lisa.
I would just add that in thinking about the annual report on this, or the annual review, it's possibly too late to do that this year, or to do the timing I'm going to suggest this year, but during budget season, all the departments report to the Finance and Personnel Committee about what their activities have been in the current year and what they'd like to undertake in the coming year. And they do that to justify their budget request. And one of the things that Brian Gatto has started to ask department directors to include in their narratives is an indication, and also in their capital budget request for specific projects, include an indication of what items in the strategic plan or the comprehensive plan the staff are advancing through the projects they're requesting. And I'm wondering, just looking at the performance measures here, I'm wondering if maybe starting for the 2026 budget, we could recommend that the annual review coincide with that time frame so that the Finance and Personnel Committee can ask questions like, okay, you've got, what are your plans to implement complete streets policy in these specific street projects that you've got coming up in the coming year? Just a thought.
Any other takers? Jim?
Mark, if you were gathering some thoughts there on guidelines, I think Lisa brought this up and it came up at the last meeting, I think as part of the guidelines is that there should be a representative on the public works from pedestrian, bicycle, and transit.
Well, and what we specifically, which she also mentioned as an idea, which I think has a lot of merit, is that one option would be to have an appointment, a person be appointed who serves on both. Just automatically by default, the person serves on both.
Right. Okay.
That's another option too. That's obviously a council decision. That's something for them to address.
Ken?
Yeah, I guess the only comment is that, this deals mostly with new construction, and this was mentioned before, but traffic patterns change and hazards change. And I don't know how you're going to work something into this, but it was brought up earlier on High Point Drive and Century Avenue that with the increased traffic and change that really there's nothing in our system to really evaluate and correct some of the hazard issues that are developing, and as a result of this new construction and the change in traffic patterns. I think that somewhere in Public Works that when we send all these recommendations to Public Works, and yet things really don't change sometimes. The only one that I know that's changes was the intersection at Terrace Avenue and Parmenter, that they put some corrective measures in that, and it seemed to improve the traffic pattern and pedestrian safety across that. So we really have to look at some of these issues that are being brought up by the citizens and the concerns that they have concerning hazards being developed. I guess, I don't know, it's kind of hard to go into that, but I really think that we need to reevaluate some of these areas that have changing traffic patterns. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring back, we're talking about new construction, and what about other things that don't involve new construction? And we're talking about safety. So my earlier thought about including this public safety committee, does that have merit?
Yeah, I think we can definitely talk about all the committees we need to be involved with. Last call. We'll get to do some more brainstorming on item number 2. So this one is a little more. Item number 2, potential tactical urbanism projects to propose for inclusion in the 2025 budget. It is budget season. So it's time, if we have some.
Are you seeing the screen, the agenda, by the way?
We're currently we're seeing the complete streets policy.
Yeah, I've been having problems with sharing screens tonight. I apologize. I'm not sure why the software is not responding the way it usually does. How about now?
Yep, there's the agenda.
Yeah, but I don't have any color on my screen to tell me that's what's being shared. It's just really strange. So I apologize if I've been sharing things that didn't go along with what your discussion was.
All right, so what I'm suggesting is that at the moment we propose one or two tactical urbanism projects for Public Works to investigate. Just to, as a quick refresher, a tactical urbanism project is generally speaking a lower budget project that can be done quickly with temporary materials like paint or cones. The design intent is usually to keep it up for at least 6 months and collect data so that we can make informed judgments about what worked and what didn't. So one project I would propose is to ask, just as an example, is to ask Public Works to investigate what could be done at the Costco intersection. So I'd like to propose that, but that's also a quick example. Kirsten.
Yep, and I'd like to propose to go ahead with your idea, Tad, of Century Avenue west of Branch Street to perimeter.
That would be for the road diet. Mark.
Oh, the road died. Okay,
Yeah,
I apologize.
No, that's fine. I'm
We were using the
forgetting.
term tactical urbanism when we were discussing
Right.
that, so, yeah. So, okay, I will strike that.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not that we couldn't use it for the road diet. I was just trying to remember if we'd already done that or not. I think that's in the budget under a different thing, right, Mark? Mark, you're muted. Mark is missing.
Well, if it isn't under a different part of the budget, if we haven't already implemented that, I would like to propose that then.
Okay.
But if it already has been, I didn't know if we actually agreed on putting that into this budget.
Right, and I can't remember either.
Mm-hmm. So if we have not, I would propose that we do.
All right.
Sorry, I had to step out for a moment, so I don't know if you called on me. I hear silence right now.
Yeah, we were trying to remember if the Century Avenue road diet, if that was already in the budget under something else.
It's not.
It's not.
I don't believe it is. I think it's something we've said we would study, but I don't believe that was in for this year. It certainly isn't in for funding for a study this year. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, Alder Hanairo maybe would remember, but I assume you already had asked her. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking me.
I
We
can look
didn't.
it up.
Yeah.
I'll look it up while we're talking. And
Yeah, I'm
was
sorry. Sorry, I was stepped away.
No, that's fine. And I was just going to say, I don't know enough about tactical urbanism to know whether there'd be a good place in my district for that. But if High Road and Century Avenue intersection, if that's such a place, I would welcome suggestions for how to use tactical urbanism to make that a more safe intersection. On the other hand, if that will be included as part of the road diet, it can wait.
Yeah, and it likely would, because the road diet, any plan for the road diet would need to investigate all the intersections along it as well.
And the Century Avenue Road Diet Study is in the 5-year plan for 2025, just this,
Right.
the study.
Right. That's what I remembered. I knew it wasn't budgeted for this year, but I figured, I knew it was in a document at some point. So thank you for confirming that. I'm really looking forward to that one, just as an aside. So did you talk at all, Tad, about the one project we did do at Elmwood in Bristol?
No, I didn't. Could you
Okay, I
give us an
thought,
overview of that?
yeah, I was talking with Charles Meyer about this the other, yesterday, I guess it was. No, today. The days blur. So because he had asked me about it as well. So a couple summers ago, I think, we had an intern in the planning department that obtained some materials to put out cones and some other materials to have a temporary traffic circle at the Elmwood Bristol intersection to really help slow down traffic. And this was it Elmwood Bristol or Elmwood Middleton? No, Elmwood Bristol, because well, one of them has a four-way stop, and I don't remember where it was now. I think it was at the four-way stop. Anyway, so we have some resources on hand. We just haven't redeployed them anywhere else. I don't know where those are stored. I assume those are at our public works garage. But really the intent, I think having them at Century and Hive Road, where it's a higher speed with traffic signals, that would probably be somewhat problematic. Like my recollection of the project, which was that it was really not suited for a arterial roadway circumstance. So, and I think Tad, what you and what I heard today from Charles is the idea of where else can we experiment and showcase efforts to help calm traffic, leading potentially to permanent solutions.
Right. I mean, we absolutely could do a project at the intersection. We just have to do things like turn the signals off. So it might be less desirable, but it's still worth putting out to the public works to investigate, I think. We might also need to get Jersey barriers. Those are a little more expensive than orange cones. So we have the two suggestions. We have the Costco entrance on Deming, and we have a tactical urbanism look at the road diet on Century Avenue. How do people feel about that? About those two? Other preferences, other suggestions?
I will say that we have had requests and concerns raised about the Maywood Branch intersection, which of course is a school pedestrian corridor, safe routes to school. So I'll just mention that one, that we've had some interest in that over the years.
Kirsten.
Yeah, Mark, that was brought up years ago when Jim Blodgett was,
Right.
I mean, that was like 10 years ago, right?
Well, I don't know if it was that long ago, but more recently, a couple of years ago, it came up again.
When we were looking at all the safe routes to schools. Yeah.
Well, right, a long time ago, yes, but more recently it came up again. Mayor Kuhn and Alder Nelson asked about that 24 months ago. So that's why it's filed away in my head.
Yep.
There had been a discussion at that time about possibly putting up a light there. And I know that didn't go very far. But that would be a good location. I mean, that's been a problem for not 10 years, but 30 or more years.
What do you want me to report for this item, Ted? Those two locations and Costco entrance, and I'm not sure what you mean by what I should capture for the minutes for the Century Avenue quarter.
Well, oh, for the Century Avenue quarter?
Yeah.
For Century Avenue, so the plan, the actual study is already budgeted for next year.
It's not budgeted. It was in the capital improvement plan, which will be consulted as we develop the budget. And I would
Okay.
I would anticipate at our, not next meeting, but in July, committees will start having a chance to propose budget items for next year. And so that will be certainly in August, at our August meeting, that would be where we'd want to make that as a formal recommendation to departments submitting budgets.
Okay.
And, you know, I'll be candid, I don't know that we have, well, once we get our intern here, it depends how Abby wants to, we have him wanting to, we want him to work on various projects, including the active transportation plan. But I don't know that we have right now staffing to do too much with the tactical urban project this year, or tactical urbanism project this year. But I think what you were focusing on here, Tad, was to start thinking about it for budgeting for next year. That was, I think, your goal. Actually, that's what.
Well, these are specifically things that we might recommend to Public
Got it.
Works.
Right.
So,
Got it.
which, yeah. So, Kirsten, yeah.
Yep, sorry. So if it feels like it's too big to do the Century Avenue one, I would say the other location would be where the Goodwill entrance is, where the path goes across it. That's a very dangerous intersection or area also for cyclists and pedestrians from people pulling in and out of that parking lot at high speed. So that would be another smaller project, more like the one in Costco to look at.
I support that. I almost got hit there. And if it can happen to me, it's gonna happen to other people too.
Right. So, Mark, I foolishly did not look up how to make a recommendation to another committee. What do we do there?
Oh, there's not a.
Not a special thing. We just say we recommend you do this.
Yeah, I think what I'll do in the minutes is indicate that for this item that, I mean, I guess you could make a motion if you wanted to, if somebody wanted to, if you had a specific location in mind, to make that as in the form of a motion to the committee for their review, for Public Works Committee. I mean, there's nothing improper about that.
So a motion like that, we would like to look at the area between on Century Avenue between Allen and Goodwill.
Yeah, but I'd rather see a motion made by someone with their camera on, please.
Oh, my camera's not on?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Should I repeat it?
No, we got it now. I just want to make sure you're aware of our policy.
I didn't even know my camera went off when I switched over to talk.
I think your camera has a mind of its own, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe, or maybe it's the operator. I don't know.
Jim?
I think Tom raised this earlier, and a lot of these issues seem to be coming up because of high speed and/or inattentive driving. And I think Tom mentioned about whether or not we should have involvement with the Public Safety Committee Just a thought.
It's like Angela.
Okay, so the recommendation would be then a motion to recommend to Public Works to include, I guess, include budget items, Mark, or is
Yeah,
that wrong?
I think to what I think I'm hearing you say as a committee is to prioritize a few of these locations for tactical urbanism projects approach to address safety issues, safety concerns related to pedestrian bicycles. And I heard the Costco driveway, I heard the Goodwill driveway.
Oh, so down there, so we're in somebody else's parking.
I also hear feedback, and I'm not sure
Yeah,
where
that
So I should be
the
fine.
moment it's coming from Tom. Just
Okay. So, I think those two intersections would be, that would probably suffice.
all right. More likely to get through in this small budget. So yeah.
And I mean, if you want, you can, I mean, there's time to bring this up again in June and July and August when you, so I mean, if this is just something, if you want us to do some more research on this, we can, or if you want to think about this for the next meeting, that's fine too. This doesn't have to be a motion that's adopted tonight, but if you're ready to make one, that's obviously your prerogative. It's on the agenda.
I'm here before, so I can't.
So let this sit, or what do you want?
Well, okay, clear something up for me for the budget. The budget the budget for 2025 for fiscal 2025 has already been made.
No. So the budget process,
Okay.
we'll have a kickoff meeting, and it's typically in July, early mid-July. Actually, the council probably gets it a little earlier than that, but city staff and departments are asked in July to begin developing their budgets and go through committee review and submit them by mid-August. That's the typical timeline.
By mid-August. When does the fiscal year start?
Well, the year we're on a calendar year basis, but the budget process for submittals, the budget gets adopted typically mid to late November. So our process starts submitting budgets. So we're ahead of the curve here, and that's great.
Got it. No, sorry, I was I was thinking state fiscal year, so I was like, we've got a month
No, and federal is different too. No, we are on a calendar basis.
We're calendar budgeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then. Maybe we should wait and come up with more stuff.
Well, maybe in the meantime, we can encourage members to research tactical urbanism. Sorry, I didn't put any links in the packet. It's a term that obviously can easily be searched. Maybe that will spur some ideas for discussion. I can also, in the meantime, talk with my colleagues in Public Works to see what they would find helpful in terms of guidance on this topic. So if you'd like, I can report back at the next meeting, and our next meeting would be June 13th.
Yes.
I'm out of town, leaving on the 12th to go to a memorial service out of the state. So
it can be at our June meeting, whenever that is.
Well, yeah, I will have trouble staffing that meeting very well. I'm not saying I can't staff the meeting right now, but it's not going to be an easy one for me to staff.
Okay.
We can discuss that in a couple of weeks, Ted.
Okay.
But even then, if for some reason there weren't a meeting in June, and you went to July 11th, that would still be very timely for budgeting purposes. That would
you're
not missing the.
Okay. So we're we're not as constrained as I thought. That's
Yeah,
good to hear.
I'm sorry you weren't aware of that. I should have made that
No,
clear.
no,
Just thought you were
well,
being very proactive.
I didn't ask, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I thought you were being very proactive. Kudos to that.
All right.
Okay.
Is everybody fine with waiting, giving us more time to think? I'll take the silence as a yes. Okay, so item number 3, I just wanted to thank everybody who's been on the committee for the past year, for your feedback and your contributions. And if you won't be rejoining us when we reconstitute, thank you for your service. We appreciate you.
And just a little bit of background, and I think everyone probably is aware, but every spring committees reorganize and the positions are on a staggered cycle, but sometimes people choose not to renew or there's a new appointment. So that's what Tad's referring to. So I specifically wanted to acknowledge Zoe Van Nest, who's not here, unfortunately. I know she's leaving. And Jim, if I recall, I think I heard you say that you weren't seeking reappointment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to especially acknowledge you since you're here and have served on the committee for many years and have brought a perspective to the committee that is very important. It's a unique perspective given some of the experiences you've had over the years, and your perspectives are going to be missed. And so you're always welcome to reach out to me and to anybody here, I'm sure, for to continue sharing your observations and concerns. So we wanted to thank you publicly for your service.
And I just would like to comment, I have been on the committee for quite a long time. I think I looked and I think I've been on 3 terms. I've been on for almost 6 years. And it's been very enjoyable and would really like to commend the staff at Middleton and the council members and also the citizen volunteers. You know, a lot of times you hear a lot of complaints about city government and how it operates. But the one thing I will have to say is that everybody that I've been involved with here has shown a great deal of dedication, and it's really appreciated. And I'm proud that I've lived in Middleton for 48 years. And thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And then Ken, I don't know what your plans are, but I recall you talking about possibly stepping down from the committee.
That's correct. I think we've talked on the Commission on Aging that Steve Small will take my place on the committee. He's an active biker, both motorized and unmotorized, and he's a walker. So I think he'll be a good fit for the committee.
So thank you too for your perspectives from Commission on Aging. Sorry, Tad, I don't mean to.
You're fine.
I'm giving you some background because I've known Jim longer, so I just wanted to let you know
Yeah.
we didn't coordinate this ahead of time, so that's why I'm kind of singling people out here. But I'm sorry if I missed anybody else. I'm not aware of the appointment process, who's coming and going. I just am going by what I've heard from conversations with people.
Staff updates.
Very briefly, I have no update for the active transportation plan other than, as I mentioned already, we have an intern who just accepted our offer a few days ago, who has an interest in transportation planning, and that's why we hired him. Abby hired him. He starts, I think, I think it was the week of May 20th, and we really want him to be a point person for getting some of the elements of the active transportation plan going. We are looking forward to his arrival. I can't remember his name at the moment, but you'll see him in the future. That's all I had for that one.
and Bike Week preparations?
A couple things to report. I'm starting to line up some sponsors. Capital Brewery stepped forward. They actually contacted me first. So they are gonna sponsor one of the days. I don't know if we're gonna have a station every day of the week. I don't know if that's really necessary. I am happy to report that our communications manager has, after I reached out to him, he's come up with a pretty active plan for posts to do every day in terms of content, as well as he's drafted a couple letters to the editor. And Tad, I wanted to talk with you about whether you as chair wanted to, or anybody on the committee for that matter, wanted to sign your name or edit one of the, use one of these as a template and have your own message to promote the Bike Week and Middleton's role in the region on promoting bicycle infrastructure and use. So we have a couple of those initiatives going, and I'll be working on that in the next couple of weeks. Oh, and then a community bike ride. We haven't set a day for that yet. I'm probably I need to talk to the mayor still, but typically we've often done that on a Sunday. So I was eyeing Sunday the 2nd of June, but that's to be determined, but that's in progress as well.
Kirsten.
Yep, and regarding the community bike ride, as far as sponsors, I'm willing to contact Long Table. They've always been extremely friendly with bike projects, so donating. So I'm sure they would be willing to do like a discount or something like that. If you want me to, Mark, I can contact Andrea and Matt.
I welcome any and all assistance.
All right.
I'm spread pretty thin these days, I'm sorry to say.
Yep, and if it's not connected to the ride, we can just do like a happy hour, because Madison does stuff prior and after work. So I'll definitely contact them.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa.
Thanks. I was just wondering, Mark, were you able to determine whether there's any possibility of connecting somehow to the Pride Fest that's going to be going on I think it's at Stonehorse Green.
I have not. I do recall you saying that now. I'm sorry, I have not worked on that.
If it doesn't work out this year, then maybe next year there could be some sort of Pride ride connection.
All right, future events. All right, hearing nothing and seeing that our agenda is complete for the night, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim and Ken.
Good night.
Thank you guys all.